So hi, my name is Brenda Adler, Gordon Food Service Culinary Specialist for South Florida. Today we're doing a very simple dish but highly popular, which is the ever-growing street taco that we are seeing in probably every venue of restaurants throughout the cities. We're going to start with something a little different. I'm going to do a puffy taco, which is a flour tortilla that's deep fried and it kind of puffs out. In addition to the filling, I'm going to do a churrasco style skirt steak that's been marinated in highly fragrant herbs and spices to add a unique layer to the taco, and in addition to that, very simple, crunchy, spicy coleslaw is going to go on top. So the dish is not complicated, very simple. Let's go into the kitchen and see how this is all put together. First start and get out of the way, we'll create our puffy tacos. We use a 4.5-inch flour tortilla. We have our hot oil ready to go. What we're going to do is we're going to drop the tortilla into the hot fat. We're going to take a heat resistant spatula. We're going to kind of let that start to puff up a little bit. And then we're going to take this right down the middle and we're going to hold it down until this shell puffs up and gets very crispy. We're going to remove those, place them on a paper towel, and set those aside. It gets nice and crispy. We want to make sure that we lay that down and let all the fat drain, and we're going to come back to that in a moment. You would make 3 of those, which I have here, and that's going to be the start of our dish. The next step is to make our chimichurri sauce. We're going to go ahead and just add all of our ingredients. We have some fresh cilantro, chopped onions, garlic, some olive oil. And you want enough olive oil so that you have it, so this is actually very nice and saucy. And then we're going to add for the acid, instead of lime, because we're going to be putting lime later on in the coleslaw, I'm just going to use a little bit of apple cider vinegar. The apple cider vinegar is actually going to, when the steak starts to marinate, is going to start to break down the membrane of the steak and actually create a very tender bite. Instead of a traditional ground beef taco, which we see, we're going to use a very special cut of meat from Halpern's Prime Steak and Seafood. I'm going to be using a 6-ounce, 28-day aged Angus skirt steak. That's going to, so I'm going to go ahead and take my marinade, put my steak in a bowl, pour the marinade over the meat, and refrigerate that for overnight or at least 2 hours. We really want the acid to start working on the meat to break it down so that it becomes nice and tender bite. So in the grill pan, we're going to get this nice and hot. We're actually going to turn this up a little bit. I want to get it a little bit of smoky. I want to make sure that my pan is hot because we want to sear all of the juices into the steak. So this doesn't take very long. I like to keep the meat kind of a medium rare to medium. I would not want to cook this too long because the meat has really been marinating and it's almost been kind of cooking in its own juices with the herbs and the oil and the vinegar. That steak really starts to break down and almost cook a little bit. Okay, so while the steak is cooking, I'm going to just go ahead and make my spicy cilantro lime coleslaw. This is so easy. About 1/2 cup of sour cream, same amount of mayonnaise, a little bit of garlic, and I'm actually not going to use this much. We don't want too much garlic in there. Since we've got a lot of garlic on the steak, we want to just kind of calm this down a little bit because it's going to be eaten raw. I'm going to add my fresh parsley, my fresh cilantro, my minced jalapeno, I've got a little bit of a lime salt. Okay, just want to give it that extra little kick. Fresh lime. We'll do a little more fresh lime. And we're going to mix this together. We're going to create the coleslaw dressing. So we made this spicy with the fresh jalapenos. You certainly can use pickled jalapenos if you like. You could use some Fresno peppers if you wanted a little bit of color. But we've got this going. So here I think we want to turn our steak around, or over, I should say. Let that get going on the other side. All right. Let's just give this a little taste. Make sure we have enough salt in there, and it's perfect. We've got our Marcon 1/8 shredded coleslaw mix. I like to use the cabbage and the carrots in there. I like the visual of the different colors. Gonna go ahead and add that in. Mix that up. And there you have the slaw. That's all it is. Make sure that we incorporate the dressing so that each strand of slaw has this delicious spicy concoction, and you get a bite with every piece of the meat. Okay, so that's our slaw. I'm going to set that aside. We're going to test our steak for doneness. I think it needs maybe just another minute. Once the steak is finished, we are going to place it onto a cutting board, and we're going to let that steak rest for about 5 minutes. And whenever you use a steak or skirt steak or flat meat or something that you can actually see the grain through the meat, you always want to cut against the grain. So as we know, skirt steak's grain always goes this way. So what I'm going to do, just to make it easier, I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half, a perfect medium rare, and I'm going to slice the meat against the grain. And you want nice thin slices so that when you cut or you bite the taco shell, it will just kind of fall apart and be tender and juicy to the touch. And I started out with a 6-ounce steak, and it really looks like a lot of meat, and it actually is. So I am thinking, depending on what your plate cost is going to be, you could really probably use a smaller steak. So we're going to go ahead and start to plate up our tacos. We're going to take about 2 ounces of the sliced meat into each shell. So we want to kind of stuff that in there, maybe make the meats stick out a little bit so that when your guest is served, you can see the beautiful medium rare skirt steak. I'm gonna go ahead and top it with a little bit of the coleslaw mixture. And then garnish it with some fresh, fragrant cilantro. And on the side, I put a little bit of cilantro mayo, just in case the customer wants a little bit more of a dipping sauce. So enjoy our puffy tacos with our chimichurri steak and spicy cilantro lime coleslaw.